Fear Not, Episode 18. Hi, I'm Billy Atwell, and I believe that consistently facing your fears is the only way to realize your truest self and to make those confident choices that will help you to obtain your deepest held hopes and dreams. I have faith that this podcast series will show you that you are not alone, that it will strengthen you and give you courage to face your fears, and that it will help you to permanently cross over into a life of living beyond your fears. Join me on this journey as we listen and learn from others as they share their experiences in facing and overcoming their own fears. Hello, everybody. Today, you and I are going to be joined by Susan Burns. Welcome, Susan. Are you ready to fear not today?
I guess so. Let's go for it.
Susan Burns is a graphic designer in Sacramento, California. Her latest design feat was the redesign of Safe Credit Union's 25-plus-year-old logo, and she is proud to lead the design team of a rapidly growing regional brand for the past 6.5 years. She is currently serving as the president of her Toastmasters club. When not designing or working on public speaking, Susan can be seen riding around Midtown Sacramento, sampling the city's many festivals and its always evolving restaurant and bar scene. Susan and her husband Gary agree there's nothing like spending time at home when the home is a 116-year-old craftsman and a fun neighborhood with, in their opinion, the world's best 2 dogs and cats. Susan, could you maybe take a few seconds and fill in the gaps and give us a brief glimpse of your personal life?
Sure. As a bus goes by. Well, I guess that starts us off with my personal life. I am a frequenter of Sacramento's many coffee shops, and one of my favorite perches is here at Insight Coffee Roasters, which is where I am today, enjoying a nice a nice latte. And unfortunately, you can hear in the background, I'm right by the road, so pardon any interruptions.
Can you share with us, Susan, one of the biggest fears you've had to face and tell us what did you do to overcome it?
So, thanks. I've been giving this some thought. You sent the questions in advance, and I appreciate that. And I've been thinking about. I feel like I need to take kind of a step back from that question and kind of think about what fear really is for me. I feel like an easy answer to the question about fears has to do with sort of physical fear. And when I think about my my most fearful moments they would be like the times that I felt in physical danger. I've had the opportunity to go skydiving a couple of times, and there's a really scary feeling right when you're about to jump out of a plane that is unmatched, just that jump into the void. But I think there's also other kinds of fear. I think about sort of a more sort of existential fear of, say, the fear of failure. And even though I've overcome a lot of physical fears, jumped out of planes, jumped off of cliffs, I've actually put myself into fearful, like kind of scary situations, been mugged a couple of times, those kinds of things where my physical person was sort of in danger, or at least in perceived danger. And I've overcome those, as I think anybody kind of can, when it comes to the larger, what I would call that existential fear. And in my case, that the one that really I focus on is that fear of failure. I think it's a different thing. I mean, I think it manifests itself sometimes in physical ways, but I think it's a different deal altogether. So I guess I was thinking about what's been really interesting to me about this thought process has been, how are those two things related, in terms of overcoming them? And the things I came up with are, well, two things. One is preparation. Scary things I've done in my life also include public speaking. I remember the first time I gave a speech at Toastmasters 2 years ago. I was terrified. I was absolutely fearful. I overprepared, and I was literally like sweating. I was sweating. I had butterflies. I had just like a pit in my stomach. I was so, so scared. But I took the leap, and I guess it's similar to the leap take that I took out of a plane in the sense that you just kind of have to gather your courage and take that jump and spit out the first sentence and rely on your preparation. So I think I'm going to go with preparation as being one of the keys to overcoming fear. And then the second thing, and I think it applies to both types of fear that I identified, is just an openness, openness to vulnerability and an openness to possibility and to what the world has to offer, an openness to your own capabilities. And I think that's the hardest part. I mean, preparation is something we can all do easily with a little bit of time and brain power and putting your head to work on it. But when it comes to vulnerability, I think that's the harder one because it involves opening your heart. And I think that's it. That's the crux of it that maybe everyone struggles with.
So, what do you do to keep your heart open?
I think it's a process. I think it's a process of acknowledging that that's the big thing that the big challenge. I don't know that I feel like that's a complete process for me. I don't know that I can say, oh, yes, I'm definitely a person that's always available for opening myself up and being vulnerable. It's not that easy. But I do think acknowledging it and acknowledging that it's difficult and a little scary, I think goes a long way to helping you get started. At least it helps me to get started.
Do you have a daily practice that you do, or maybe just a habit that helps you to stay out of fear?
Well, I think that preparation is the key. I've definitely noticed through my involvement with Toastmasters that if you have prepared even a rough outline, you're going to ensure that your fear is at least kept under control if you have something to fall back on, which is your own preparation. Um, as far as a daily practice, I don't know. I think for me, setting an intention by joining something like Toastmasters has been a good way for me to kind of create a new habit for myself of preparing. I've noticed that it has translated into other aspects of my life, especially work. If I have to give a, a talk or present something, especially presenting my own design work for the first time, it helps if I have kind of sketched out in my mind a storyline to explain the work, where it came from, how it relates to the goals of the project. Then I'm ensuring a better measure of success, which helps. If I know that if I know that I've prepared well, then I may not necessarily succeed, but at least I know that I have better level of confidence in what I'm doing.
Do you use visualization in that practice? Like, do you see yourself giving the speech? Do you see yourself doing the presentation? Or is it just sort of a mental, verbal
Yeah,
method that you use?
I do think visualization is important, and I think that's for me part of a a solid um, like an outline. So what I like to do is it's funny when I first started giving a speech, what I would do was write every single word down on a piece of paper and then try to kind of memorize it. But I realized that you can kind of get lost in that, and if like you miss one word or you miss one sentence, then suddenly you're super far off track. So I've kind of honed that to a really basic outline involving a beginning, three main points, and a closing where I reiterate my points. And that's what I've taken with me. And it's also really valuable in visualizing what I'm going to be, how I'm going to be presenting. Um, because I can just get myself through it a little bit more easily. I don't have to know every single word I'm going to use in advance, but I can imagine myself going through all of my steps, if that makes sense. I think the element of storytelling has also really played a big part in the ways that I prepare. Um, if you can bring your audience through a storyline, I think more people are able to relate and to follow along. And you know what's so funny? Storytelling is has been an interesting thing for me as a designer and as a speaker. I think it's a really really powerful tool because it's something that everybody can relate to. It's a great way of communicating in a really universal way for people to follow.
Interesting. Do you have a resource that might help us in our own journeys in overcoming fear that you could share with us today?
You know, I for me, choosing Toastmasters was a really great choice. I don't know that that would be the right fit for everyone, but for me, it's been a really, really great resource. As a graphic designer, I have been pushing pixels behind a computer for almost 20 years. And I realized along the way somewhere I'd kind of lost or gotten out of practice um, with my verbal skills. So getting back in touch with that has just brought me a lot of benefits. I mean, I started because I wanted to be a better presenter, and I think it's actually helped contribute to me even being a better designer because of the way that I can understand the need for communication and um, creating a clear storyline. And in marketing, that is exactly what that's kind of the holy grail. That's what we're looking for is a way to connect to the audience. So yeah, Toastmasters has ended up being a really good resource for me. It's international. I don't know if you are familiar with it, but it's an international organization. It's been around for years and years. In fact, it's been around for so long. It started off as only men. Um, there's a woman in our Toastmasters club who's older, and she has been a Toastmaster for so long that originally on our roster of our club, she had to go by Mark instead of Marcia on the roster because they didn't accept women. So, you know, Toastmasters been around for a long time and has evolved, thank goodness, and now is fully accepting of everyone, which is great. And I can't imagine a time that it didn't, but that was its origin.
Are you ready for the speed run?
I'm ready. Let's do the speed round.
What individual, fiction or real, has made the most impact on your life?
I would say my mom. You know, I lost my mom this past year, and when I think about people that have made an impact on my life, I have to go with my mom. She was a strong, smart, highly educated woman with really high standards, and I admired her so much. And I learned basically everything from her. When I think about my own principles and values, I can draw a pretty straight line back to my very impressive mom, Shirley Birch.
If you could instantly change one thing in the world, what would it be?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about vulnerability, and I think my answer would have to be I wish I could change people's ability to be vulnerable. I think if we had more of that, we would be a lot better off as a society. I think people get so backed up behind their fear and anxiety that it blocks things. So I would say a more vulnerable society.
What's your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness, I would say I'm a little bossy. I'll go with bossiness.
What's your biggest strength?
Enthusiasm. I I think that my best thing is my ability to just really throw myself into whatever I'm doing, and the people that I'm around, the people I care about, the activities that I am involved with, and my neighborhood, my community, my work. I'm nothing if not enthusiastic.
And if you could only have one book to read, what would it be?
Um, I don't know that I can pin one book. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't answer that one. There's some great inspirational books out there, but sorry, I'm a no-go on the one book. There's too much great stuff out there. I think people should just read whatever they're going to read and stay open to all the possibilities of literature that's there.
What's your favorite sound?
Ooh, I love this question. My first instinct is the one I'm gonna go with, which is the sound of a baby laughing. There's something so beautiful and innocent and guileless and just pure, pure joy, in baby laughter.
Do you have any parting advice for us today?
Parting advice. I think my thoughts have to do with, being your best self and, staying open, keeping your heart open, and it's something I'm always gonna continue working on, and, I hope, that everyone can do that with me, and maybe I'll just issue a challenge to, if I can try it, maybe others can too.
That's excellent, and thank you for the challenge.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you today, Susan, for joining us. It's been a great pleasure, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Yeah, me too. Great topic, and I really, really love that you're doing this. I think it's a wonderful thing for us to all think about.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, you cannot achieve everything, but you do have the God-given ability to achieve anything. So stay focused, out of fear, and keep on keeping on. Until next time, be well and peaceful. For more information on today's episode and guest, or for resources that will assist you in overcoming your fears, visit livingbeyondyourfears.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, where 3 times a week we move to a life beyond our fears.